Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependent Dummy podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. Now, in your 20s, you're finding yourself exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in shit relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. Codependency is a way of being where we put the feelings, wants, and needs of others above our own in an unconscious attempt to meet our own feelings, wants, and needs. Sorry to break it to you, sis, but that is not sustainable. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Baby mine, dry your eyes. Baby mine, don't you cry. Rest your head close to my heart, never to part, baby of mine. Little one, when you play, don't you mind what they say. Let those eyes sparkle and shine, never a tear, baby of mine. And the dog I am sitting is singing along with me. Baby girl, there's my serenade to you today, this week. I was not planning to do a solo cast at this moment, and I just was sitting down with someone to record an interview. I'm excited for them to come on, and we were having some technical difficulties. So we rescheduled, and I want to provide you with content to help you along your healing journey from codependency every week. So I'm recording this solo cast. Do you have a hard time saying no? Do you find yourself saying yes when you want to say no? Do you often realize you're doing something for someone else that you don't actually want to do? You agree to do things and you don't want to do them, but you do them anyways. Or maybe you say yes, you agree, you do the thing, and you have no awareness until after the fact, when you have a blow up or a very sad cry over a seemingly unimportant, trivial matter. Today, this episode, we are going to talk about denial, which is not only a river in Egypt. I hope you get that joke. Actually, I have another joke I will share with you because this is just a spontaneous podcast. How many codependents does it take to change a light bulb? I actually wrote this myself. So, how many codependents does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, and she will do all she can to change herself in hopes that the light bulb will realize it needs to change too because of all of her sacrifice. Get it? Blink, blink. Cricket, cricket. So I'm curious your thoughts on that joke. And as always, before we dive into material on denial, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you needing? What are you needing? I wonder why we don't say it, right? We say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you needing? How are you needing? How are you needing? I'm happy to be here with you, despite planning to have a guest on. Gotta roll with the punches, you guys, gals. And go with the flow. Be flexible, adjust, evolve, navigate, allow. That's what I'm practicing. So, denial patterns and codependence. That's what we're going to look at. The overt and covert, explicit and implicit, knowing and unknowing, conscious and unconscious ways we deny ourselves. And then I'm going to add some anecdotes to help provide examples. A couple weeks ago, I shared with you all a great resource from Codependence Anonymous. It's a 12-step program to help codependents heal from their codependency. And I reflected on and shared with you all on compliance patterns of codependency. I mean, you look up compliant in the dictionary in the encyclopedia 10 years ago, no, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a couple months ago, and you will see my picture because I am compliant AF because I am terrified you will be angry, disappointed, or rejecting of me. I also tend to deny myself, my feelings, my intuition, out of fear of your rejection, disappointment, abandonment, rage. Please don't get mad at me. And I tend to get myself into some codependent dilemmas. So we've talked about compliant patterns. And CODA, they have these patterns of codependence, these 5 areas: compliance, denial, low self-esteem, avoidance, and control. So today we're going to look at denial patterns. I'm going to read 9 patterns of codependence and then share with you what it can look like, what it has looked like in my life very recently. Patterns of codependence. Denial. Codependence often. 1. have difficulty identifying what they are feeling. 2, minimize, alter, or deny how they truly feel. 3, perceive themselves as completely unselfish and dedicated to the well-being of others. 4, lack empathy for the feelings and needs of others. 5, label others with their negative traits. 6, think they can take care of themselves without any help from others. 7, mask pain in various ways, such as anger, humor, and isolation. 8, express negativity or aggression in indirect and passive ways. And number 9, do not recognize the unavailability of those people to whom they are attracted. I feel so seen and read by this list. And I'm going to apply it to, let's hydrate. I'm going to have some tea. Stress relief tea. I think I had it last time. So good. So 2 months ago, I had the happy anniversary episode, and I disclosed to you all that in the, around 52 episodes that had aired in the first year of the podcast, I had recorded an additional 6, 7 episodes that never aired because ultimately I didn't sense that they would resonate, serve, engage, help. And this is not entirely reflective of the guests who I was interviewing, but more reflective of myself, my difficulty in leading and navigating interviews, if they're just meandering or going off this way or going off the other way, and not necessarily talking about codependency. I struggled in those interviews to be like, excuse me, excuse me, how do you define codependency? Couldn't do it. And then also, it's reflective of me not being able to say within minutes or halfway through the interview, being able to say, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I'm going to stop us here while your answers are so poignant. I don't sense this is going to resonate with my audience. So I'm going to pause us now. I'm going to stop us now. And I really appreciate your time. And letting them respond however they need to respond, given that abrupt ending to an interview. It's not an easy thing to be cut off. And yet rather than doing that 5, 20, 30 minutes in, I sat and feigned interest for 60, sometimes like 70, 75 minutes. Because I could not navigate the interview to help get it back on track or end it early without being ruled by the terror of them being angry, disappointed, or rejecting of me. I couldn't do it. But recently, in the past couple months, I think even before the anniversary, I have been able to say no pre-interview. So that's a win. And I'm going to share about 4 experiences of saying no to potential guests as we reflect on these denial patterns. Okay. So the first example was with they are all licensed therapists. Big surprise, me being a licensed therapist. So the first no that I can recall of recent is a therapist who my dad really wanted me to have on the show. Love my dad. I love that my dad loves supporting me. And he tells everybody and anybody about my podcast. And he also recruits cool people to be on my podcast. I can't think of anyone who I've actually had. He's suggested people, though, or he's encouraged me to reach out to people. So he did encourage me to reach out to a therapist who provides a very cool sounding type of therapy that I sense would resonate with all of you. So there's types of therapy like bibliotherapy, or I think they call it musical therapy, right? Art therapy. So it was a type of cool therapy like that, where you take a type of media, right? I could do podcast therapy. I should just do podcast therapy with all my patients, have them listen to podcasts, and then we would integrate it and talk about it in our sessions, something like that. So this therapist, cool connection with media and psychotherapy. How could I have them on to talk about portrayals of codependency in this media, and then reflect on, discern, investigate, explore how the listener can apply that to their own life? So cool, right? So cool. And yet we started to correspond back and forth. And yeah, just like so many questions. Like, of course, you're going to have questions, but there were like so many questions. And I was like, is this a job interview for me? Am I trying to get hired as a podcast interviewer for someone else? Ooh, so too many questions, too much back and forth. And internally, while we were going back and forth, I felt like there was a how do I describe it? Like, like some power struggle. Not that it's like my podcast and I'm in charge, but I felt like that there was a lot of pressure in these emails to respond. I had to just, I was asked like, oh, can you describe the show and the format, and how do you prepare, and like what I can't even remember. So now it doesn't even sound that bad, but for me, I perceived it as an interview, to have someone be interviewed. And this is not a reflection on that person, right? It's just in general, I either know, hear about, or find cool people to have on. I email them, send them an invite. Sometimes they want to meet before for a coffee or something virtually, a short introduction. Other times people are like, yeah, whatever you want, I'm ready. So not effortless some effort, and this was effortful. And so, going back and forth, and like really, I would respond, and then there'd be questions about my response. And ultimately, I emailed them and I said, I have discerned it's best to not move forward with the interview. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And yes, super cool type of therapy. And yes, there are other therapists who provide that. So I will find one of them. I will have one of them on, and we will learn what that type of therapy has to offer all of us, but not with this particular therapist. So I sense that in that interaction, I was having a difficult time identifying how I was feeling, right? Going back and forth, but still going back and forth. It's like probably the first or second email, I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. But I can't do it. I can't do it all the time. I really can't. And then this other pattern, perceiving themselves as completely unselfish and dedicated to the well-being of others, I sense that to not be the asshole, I wanted to continue the dialogue. And I just like, come on, Marissa, like, just be patient, answer their questions. Like, it's fine. It's totally fine. Like, you have time to answer this question, which I do. I have all the time in the world, if that's the argument for anyone, anytime. I have deadlines, but it's not make or break. So I sense I was trying to not be selfish by continuing the conversation. I was worried I would look selfish if I did end it at that moment, like a selfish millennial snowflake who, I don't know, is sensitive, which I arguably am all of those things at times. And yeah, not really recognizing the unavailability. They did not seem that available. All my ex-boyfriends were not available. And I don't actually know, but I sensed resistance. I sensed reluctance. I sensed hesitation. I sensed a dragging their feet. And it's like, don't come on the show then. And we can talk about them all that I want, but recognizing in me, well, how come I'm continuing to dialogue with this person? How come I'm trying to convince them? How come I'm not acknowledging that part of me that's saying, no, move on. It's okay. There are thousands of potential guests you can have on this podcast, Marissa. This person apparently isn't one of them. Right now, you can revisit this in a year, but right now, let's proceed. So I sent the email and I said, thank you. I have discerned it is best we do not move forward with the interview. Something like that. And it was great. And I think they said, okay. And that was it. So that is the first example of me being a big girl host and saying, no, thank you. Second example I was approached by a therapist who wanted to come on, and she sent me a medium, we'll say a medium sized email. Hey, Marissa, I would love to come on your podcast and talk about the following topics as it relates to women's mental health. And it was this medium-sized email, right? So not a couple sentences email, not a long narrative, a medium-sized email. And in this medium-sized email, I read through it. My initial gut, intuitive, still quiet voice internally thought, this girl did not mention codependency one time. Not a name malicious, somewhat judgmental, little bit of judgment. And also like curiosity, like, she didn't mention codependency one time in her pitch. I don't know. That's odd. And the callous, malicious, judgmental part of me thinks, oh, well, she's just copy and pasting an email and sending it to everyone and anyone, trying to get on a bunch of podcasts, which, hello, that was me probably 2 years ago. Takes one to know one. So practicing compassion, practicing understanding and patience, but also minimizing my initial, like, I don't know. I think, yeah, I want to be flexible. So somewhat denying or wanting to give her an opportunity. And I sent back, I was like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I am curious how, and I didn't say all of this, but it's like, how does all of this relate to codependency? Right? There's the, again, the compassion, trying to build a bridge, not black or white, the gray. And she responded with another medium-sized email, and it was not aligned. Ultimately, it did not resonate. And yet I know her. I have colleagues who know her. I have colleagues who I really care about who know her. And I was worried, if I say no to her, is she going to tell these colleagues? Are the colleagues who we have in common, who I do care about, and I do care about like what they think of me, is she going to tell all of them that I am this sensitive, controlling, mean, excluding host? And it was, like I literally, I was like, oh my God, like, okay, so do I email her again to try and create some type of dialogue that's more focused, more resonant, could potentially come on and we could record and have a great episode, all to ensure that my colleagues, and the ones who I really care how they perceive me, all continue to perceive me positively. Am I really going to do that? And it was hard. And you know what I did is I actually wrote an email that I had no intention of sending. And I did express, I was like, hey, I appreciate you taking your time. And also, like, girl, if you're going to pitch to be on my podcast, at least have the decency to mention the term codependency. Because I was angry. And now that I reflect on it, she emailed me first time. I asked her, how does this resonate with codependency? She emailed me a bunch of stuff which didn't resonate. And prior to me responding to that email, she sent another email with more points. And again, I could talk about her all day, but ultimately, girl, this is about me. This is about me and my inability to, very early on or initially, it's so hard. It's not a black or white, one rule fits all to say, oh, well, intuitively, I got her first email and I didn't like what I read. So I said no. No, of course, I want to give her an opportunity to come on and to describe how her focuses relate to codependency, and also reflecting on it. I need to honor that initial hesitation, that initial, right? My hesitation, my reluctance, my doubt. And strike a balance. So I sense the balance was, as opposed to having her on versus sending her an email that was not kind, being like, girl, you need to mention codependency if you want to be on my podcast. No. But yeah, in the middle, asking, I could see where this is going. Tell me, how does this connect to codependency? So, yeah, I thankfully, I did though. I had difficulty identifying my feelings. I did minimize. I thankfully did not express my negativity or aggression in an indirect way. But I continue to want to perceive myself as completely unselfish, dedicated to the well-being of others, right? Wouldn't it be great to have her on so everyone in our mutual circles would think I'm the hostess mostest? And yeah, I was entertaining having her on so that there wouldn't be a ripple effect to me saying no and her potentially spreading the word that I'm this terrible excluding host. Denial. And yet, thankfully, being able to ultimately, after her second email, I did say, I was like, hey, I appreciate this. And I sense that this will not resonate on the show. Take care. It is so hard to send those emails. It is so hard. And also, it's necessary. If I don't want to be sitting hours at a time, an hour at a time, recording episodes that never air. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time to record podcast episodes that never air. No, ain't nobody, ain't no codependent got time for that. Third, no. I met with a therapist and they have a really cool treatment focus that I sense would encapsulate a lot of you. I have some tea. And your experiences growing up. Yeah, I heard a specialty and I was like, oh man, I have to have them on. It's a he. I'm trying to keep it they them, but it's not really working. So yeah, definitely wanted to explore him coming on. And we met up to talk about the show, to go over some ideas. And while we were meeting, I noticed something was off for me, but I couldn't recognize it while we were meeting. I just sensed viscerally, right? Internally, physically. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. Nope. No, no, no. Right? So my body starts to communicate to me, abort or stop or leave or get up. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure, body? I don't know. He seems like a nice guy. And we were talking about ideas. And I sense, yeah, there were a couple moments where I was like he asked while we were prepping, while we were going over ideas, he said, can I ask you questions? And I was like, yeah. But it's like, you guys, like, do I really allow people to ask me questions? Not like it's like you can't ask me questions, but also, this is my podcast. This is the Codependent podcast. I am the Codependent host. So, like, I was like, sure. But also, this is not a dialogue. This is myself finding a guest, reflecting on questions for the guest, preparing my questions for the guest, meeting with the guest, providing those questions to the guest while we record, maneuvering the reality of being live with someone during a recorded interview. So adding a question here, wanting to hear more about there, and proceeding till we come to the end. You guys, yeah, it's not like a conversation, it's not like a phone call. So, that was weird. A little man splaining. Like I definitely felt the fact that I have a vagina in that moment. I'm like, I don't know if like any female guest has come on and like said like, hey, can I ask you a question? I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, definitely felt the fact that I have a vagina. He has a penis. And then yeah, that was like, and there were a couple other things, namely that he had listened to an episode and commented that I seemed really bored during the interview of that episode, and thus he felt really bored listening to the episode. And I was like, oh my God, what episode? Because I've told you guys, I don't air every episode, and I don't sense I would air an episode where I was really bored. I was like, oh my God. And yeah, I was like, okay. And he even remarked, he's like, I don't know if I should tell you that. And I was like, just like smiled, like, I don't know. I'm a codependent. I'm in denial. I can't acknowledge how that affects me in the moment. And he looked up the episode, told me which episode it was. I'm not going to tell you which episode it was because I loved that episode. I loved that guest. I hope to have that guest back on. And I was like, what? How okay. People's perception of me is not the reality, but also, oh my God, do I seem bored on all my episodes? Do I seem bored? Do I seem like the host who would put out interviews where I'm bored? No. I mean, hopefully not. But yeah, yeah. That was it. That wasn't the moment, but that was another like, but I'm codependent. I have patterns of denial. And so I heard him, he said that, and I was like, huh. And I was like, no, wasn't bored. So I'm so excited to have you on, and I'll send you information and we'll go from there. It wasn't until after the fact, going to therapy, talking about it in therapy, like looking under every nook and cranny of that conversation, that I was able to discern, oh, it's not a good fit. Not reflective of him, reflective of me and my denial, right? What would it have meant when he was like, can I ask you questions? To say like, no, it's a dialogue. I will potentially provide examples from my own life. It may get conversational at a few points throughout the interview, and yet these will be my questions and I will be leading the interview. What would it have meant to say that? Right? To sense that I have a vagina, and also that I, despite having one, can assert and maintain control while we were meeting and also during my podcast, during the interview. And yeah, what would have meant for me to say, I didn't ask for your feedback. Or, wow, that hurts my feelings. Because it did hurt my feelings. Bored? Or, I appreciate your feedback. Well, I didn't appreciate it. I hear your feedback, right? I heard it. I hear your feedback. And in the future, I would prefer that you offer it if and when asked. I didn't ask for his feedback. He is allowed to provide it as he did. And I can respond in other ways besides like, okay, yeah, let's proceed with scheduling. But the denial makes it really hard. It makes it really hard. And so sometimes I admit, like, my patients will come to therapy and they will have an experience where they were hurt like this, they were offended, they felt judged, minimized, condescended. And right in the aftermath, looking back and talking about it in session, it's so obvious. It's like the judgmental part of us could think like, well, why didn't I say anything? Why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I say no? I wish I could have. I wish my patients had the opportunity, and also it's not always in the moment that we are able to discern our feelings. So if it's difficult for you, provide yourself with compassion. Denial is an ingrained, influential, unconscious trait, pattern, fundamental piece of codependency. It's okay. We're working on it. We are working on closing the gap between a trigger to an emotion, the like sense, like the felt experience of an emotion, and the cognitive, intellectual, identifying, labeling of an emotion, and then discerning what to do. Right? We're trying to close all of that, but it's not moment by moment all the time. Okay. So just so you know, yeah, it could take months or years. When you reflect back on a memory, you're like, oh, damn, I was angry, but I was smiling and happy the whole time. Denial. And it did. And so I went to therapy, and, my therapist is not biased at all. He's not rooting for me or empathizing or sympathizing with me. Just kidding. He was like, oh no. And again, I could talk about this guy the whole time who was going to come on, but it's really reflective of me and my responsibility, my part to recognize how it impacted me and how I want to respond to that. And so I was able to send a, hey, thank you for taking time to meet with me. I have discerned, I have concluded, I sense, I can't remember what I said. It's best we not proceed with scheduling the interview and go from there. And lastly, why I'm talking to you right now, I set up an interview. She's going to come on, and so she'll be great. But while I was talking, sometimes my patients will come into a session and we'll start, and they're like, oh, I can hear myself. I hear an echo, right, on Zoom. I'm like, oh. So headphones, earbuds help with, if I'm in an interview with someone and I'm speaking, their speaker is obviously like projecting my voice to them. And then their mic, if there's an echo, starts to pick up my sound. And so we started the interview, and it was like, hey, everyone, welcome to the Codependent podcast. Today we have this amazing therapist, and we're going to talk about, and I can admit that the past year, I have had guests on whose sound quality, like their mic was so low. I didn't know it was going to be that low on the recording. But yeah, I've had people come out and their mic is super low, or the connection is not good and it's skipping. I've had people come on, yeah, the mic, it sounded bad. Like, you guys know what it sounds like when you talk in a microphone and you're too close or you're too loud, and it kind of hurts your ears. Some of those episodes have aired, some of them haven't. So this therapist came on and I could hear myself echo. And I was like, oh, and I had some denial, right? I was like, oh no. But yeah, I had, it thankfully didn't take that long, but I had some difficulty identifying what I was feeling. And yeah, part of me was like, oh no, like she and I were trying to fix it, go back and forth, like headphones, no, this, no, turning this mic, no. Ugh. So part of me was like, it's okay. It's totally fine. Fine. Yeah, we'll just record it anyways. I was like, oh my gosh, Marissa, stop being in denial. This sounds terrible. Not reflective of her, not reflective of you. This is the reality of being on podcast. And it's okay to stop, reschedule for a later date when she is able to secure what she needs on her end to avoid the echo. It was headphones. She didn't have a pair of headphones around. So it's fine. It's totally fine. But I like you guys, like I was pretty close to proceeding. Pretty close. And yeah, I potentially was facing 60 minutes of either an amazing interview, but anxious about the sound quality the whole time. And then I was listening back to the interview. We actually did record. We stopped and I played it. And I could just, the echo, it was bad. So I could hear myself and I could hear myself again through her mic picking up what I was saying. So it could have been an amazing interview, but me anxious about the sound quality the whole time. Or it could have been me listening back and hearing the sound quality and just like, oh, okay, great. Now I'm not going to air it because it sounds terrible. I guess those are the same thing because it's going to be amazing. But I was scared. I was scared to say to her, let's reschedule. I was scared to say to her, thank you for making time today. Right? People are busy. It's a lot to ask for someone's time. It's a lot for you to be listening. It's a lot for my guests to come on. Time is our most valuable resource besides love and other things. But yeah, I was like, oh no, do I tell her that I'm doubting, I'm worried, I'm sensing it's not a good time? Or to maintain her approval, do I proceed with this despite the sound quality? And thankfully, I did not minimize, alter, or deny my feelings long term. I was able to identify my clear reluctance, and I was able to express that with compassion. So she's going to come on, I think, like early May. So I am thinking of you all the time, as evidenced by saying no to certain guests, despite my fears of their rage, disappointment, abandonment, or rejection. I hope you are learning to, as opposed to deny, acknowledge. Acknowledge yourself, acknowledge your feelings. Attune to your body and what it is trying to communicate, what it is trying to convey about someone, about something, as opposed to denying. Let's attempt to attune and then discern what to do. In Codependence Anonymous, they talk about patterns of codependency, and then they have patterns of recovery. So in recovery, I am aware of my feelings and identify them. Often in the moment, #goals, I know the difference between my thoughts and feelings. In recovery, I embrace my feelings. They are valid and important. I know the difference between caring and caretaking. I recognize that caretaking others is often motivated by a need to benefit myself. I am able to express my feelings openly, directly, and calmly. So I will put a link to this PDF. I put it up a couple episodes ago. And I would encourage you this week, if and when you need to, just say no. Just say no. Let go of denial. Embrace attunement to yourself. And that is a wrap. Episode 70, I believe. I thank you for being here with me. We did not have a guest today. Spontaneous episode. Please rate the podcast. I read all the ratings and reviews. Please subscribe to this podcast. Share it with one person, one friend who needs to hear this. I have the self-validation challenge on codependemy.com under the challenge tab, and you can also get the Confiding Codependemy 30 days of journaling prompts for a less codependent and more conscious you at codependemy.com/tools for healing. And it's April. Depending where you're at in the world, it's spring. I encourage you to reflect on what you want to cultivate, what you want to plant and grow this spring season, what you want to flower, parts of you. And if you're sensing you need more help with that, one-on-one, I can offer that. So email marissa@codependemy.com to hear more. And I love you. Wishing you a great week. I will see you next week. Bye. Hey girl, it's Marissa again. I'm not like a regular podcaster, I'm a cool podcaster, right? Thank you for listening and staying till the end. You can find me on Instagram at Therapy with Marissa. Email me, marissa@codependummy.com. Check out codependummy.com for more information on the show. And baby girl, a subscribe, rating, and review would be much appreciated. Till next time, I want you to remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And now, the disclaimer. Girl, this is not therapy and I am not your therapist. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, or guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional service. If you want or need a professional, please find one.